Captain Velnara stood on the bridge of the Galactic survey ship, Harmonious Discovery, her crystalline form reflecting the soft blue lights of the control panels. Her crew had been mapping this sector of the outer rim for 3 months, and until now they had found nothing unusual. Just empty space, distant stars, and the occasional asteroid field. "Captain, we have something," called out Navigation Officer Pren from his station. "Unknown vessel, drifting at coordinates 77 Mark III. Velnara moved closer to the display screen. The image showed a ship unlike anything in their databases. Its design was strange, with harsh angles and heavy plating. The metal looked dark, almost aggressive compared to the smooth curves of council vessels. "Run a full scan," she ordered. "Check for life signs and identification markers." Science Officer Crix, an insectoid Veshkan with compound eyes that could see multiple spectrums of light, worked quickly at his console. His antenna twitched as data flooded his screens. "Captain, this is very strange. The hull composition is incredible. These alloys should not exist outside of military research facilities. The radiation shielding alone exceeds our warship specifications by 40%. "A military vessel?" Velnara asked, concern creeping into her voice. "I do not think so," Crix replied, his mandibles clicking in confusion. "The atmospheric processors are designed for environments that would kill most known species. The internal gravity generators are set at 1.2 times standard. That level would crush a Thessian within hours." Velnara felt a chill run through her crystalline structure. Standard gravity was already uncomfortable for her species. Anything higher was considered dangerous. "What kind of species needs that much gravity?" "I do not know, Captain. There is nothing like this in Council records." "Any response to our hails?" "None. The ship appears to be completely dead. Power systems are offline. But, Captain, there is something else." Crix paused, his antenna drooping. "I am detecting trace organic materials inside. Whatever crew operated this ship, they did not survive." Velnara made her decision quickly. "Prepare an away team. Full environmental suits. If the conditions inside that ship are as extreme as the scans suggest, I want everyone protected." 2 hours later, Velnara and Crix floated through the airlock of the mysterious vessel. The magnetic seals of their boots clicked against the metal floor as artificial gravity kicked in. Immediately, Velnara felt the crushing weight. Her suit compensated, but she could feel the pressure trying to compress her form. "This gravity is terrible," she said through the communication link. "How could anyone work in these conditions?" "More concerning," Crix responded, "is the atmospheric composition. Look at your readings." Velnara checked her suit's scanner. The air inside the ship registered as 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, with trace amounts of other gases. "This atmosphere is toxic. The oxygen levels would burn Thessian lungs in minutes." "For Veshkans as well," Crix agreed. "This species breathes poison." They moved carefully through the corridor. Emergency lighting flickered occasionally, powered by backup systems that were slowly dying. The walls were covered in labels written in an unknown script. Crix scanned everything, feeding data into the translation algorithms. The crew quarters made everything worse. Personal belongings floated in the zero-gravity sections where the generators had failed. Velnara picked up a small, rectangular device. When she activated it, the screen showed images. A family, 2 adults and 3 small juveniles, all of the same species. They were bipedal mammals, covered in varying shades of brown skin. Their eyes faced forward like predators. Their mouths showed flat teeth in the front but pointed ones on the sides. The adults had their arms wrapped around the juveniles in what looked like an affectionate gesture. "Predator species," Velnara whispered. "Look at those eyes, forward-facing, these beings hunted for survival." Crix moved to another compartment and made a distressed sound. "Captain, you need to see this." The walls of what appeared to be a juvenile's sleeping area were covered in drawings, simple, colorful pictures made by young hands. They showed the bipedal species standing next to enormous creatures. One drawing depicted a massive predator with huge teeth. Another showed a creature that looked like it could swallow a person whole. A third displayed a striped predator that appeared to be larger than the bipedal figures. "These cannot be real," Velnara said. "These creatures are too large, too dangerous. Nothing this size could coexist with intelligent life." "Unless," Crick said slowly, "these beings came from a world where such creatures were normal." They continued exploring and found the ship's main computer core. It took Crix an hour to bypass the damaged systems and access the basic database. What he found made his antenna go completely rigid. "Captain, I have the ship's origin data. This vessel came from a planet designated as Terra by its inhabitants. But the Galactic Survey classification system has a different name for it." He turned to face her, and his voice carried pure fear. "Deathworld Class 3. Velnara felt her form almost shatter from shock. "That is impossible. Class 3 Deathworlds cannot support intelligent life. The Council has searched for 2,000 years and never found anything above Class 1. The data does not lie, Captain. This planet called Terra or Earth has tectonic activity that causes regular massive earthquakes. Atmospheric instability generates storms with wind speeds that exceed 200 kilometers per hour. The surface receives dangerous levels of stellar radiation, and 71% of the surface is covered in salt water that contains dissolved minerals toxic to most known biology. How could intelligence evolve in such conditions?" "I do not know. But, Captain, there is more. This was not a military vessel. Look at the cargo manifest." Velnara read the translated text. "Medical supplies, agricultural equipment, educational materials, children's toys." "A cargo ship? This was a civilian transport?" "Yes. And look at the final log entry." The text appeared on her suit's display, translated by the computer. "Day 173 of our journey. Finally heading home to Earth with relief supplies for the Australian floods. The kids will be so excited to see us. Park Min-jun organized a birthday surprise for Captain Chen's daughter. Only 2 more weeks until we see our families again." Velnara read the words 3 times. These predators from a Class 3 death world, these beings who breathed poison and lived under crushing gravity, had families. They celebrated birthdays. They sent relief supplies to disaster areas. They missed their children. "What have we found?" she whispered. Crix was silent for a long moment. "A species that should not exist, Captain. And if they survived a Class 3 death world, if they became spacefaring despite those conditions, then we must ask ourselves a terrifying question. What question? What else are they capable of?" The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from 47 species filled the circular room, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some floated in specialized atmospheric bubbles. Others sat on platforms designed for their unique biology. All of them watched the central display with growing horror. Captain Velnara stood at the presentation podium, her crystalline body catching the light as she gestured toward the images. "This is what we found. A derelict vessel of unknown origin, constructed with materials and technology that rival our most advanced military designs. But this was not a warship. It was a simple cargo transport." The display shifted to show the interior of the ship. Several council members made sounds of distress at the environmental readings. Chief Xenobiologist Tarnwell, an amphibious Quellan whose skin gleamed with moisture, raised his webbed hand. "Captain Velnara, please confirm these atmospheric readings. Did this species truly breathe an oxygen-nitrogen mixture at these concentrations?" "Confirmed," Velnara replied. 21% oxygen. For comparison, that level would be lethal to Thessians within 5 minutes and cause permanent damage to Quellans in less than 10. And the gravity? Asked a delegate from the rear. 1.2 times standard. The crew lived and worked in these conditions continuously. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Commander Jex, a reptilian saurian who led the Council's military forces, stood with his scales reflecting a dark red color that indicated concern. This confirms my fears. A species evolved for such extreme conditions would possess physical capabilities far beyond any Council member. They would be unstoppable in combat. Perhaps, Velnara said carefully, but there is more you need to know. She brought up the translated database information. The word Earth appeared on the display, along with the designation Deathworld Class 3. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives stood, shouted, demanded clarification. It took several minutes for Council Chair Mordak to restore order. "Silence!" Mordak's telepathic voice boomed through every mind in the chamber. "Let Captain Velnara present her full findings before we panic." Velnara nodded her thanks. The Galactic Survey Classification System has existed for 1,200 years. In that time, we have cataloged over 73,000 worlds. We have found exactly 9 Class 1 death worlds. We have found 0 Class 2 or Class 3 death worlds that produced intelligent life. Until now. Tarnwell moved to the front of the chamber. As chief xenobiologist, his expertise was crucial. For those unfamiliar with the classification system, let me explain. A death world is any planet where the environmental conditions create constant evolutionary pressure through lethal threats. Class 1 worlds might have dangerous predators or harsh weather. Class 2 worlds have multiple catastrophic threat categories. Class 3 worlds are considered theoretically impossible for intelligence development. Why impossible? Asked a young delegate. Because survival becomes the only priority. Evolution on such worlds produces biological weapons. Every organism is optimized for violence and individual survival. Cooperation becomes secondary to staying alive. The few Class 1 Death World species we have encountered required centuries of intervention to join galactic society. They struggled with basic social concepts because their evolution taught them that other beings were either threats or food. And yet, Commander Jex said, his voice carrying across the chamber, this species achieved spaceflight. That requires cooperation, planning, and social organization at a massive scale. How is this possible? Velnara brought up the images from the ship. The family photos, the children's drawings, the birthday celebration mentioned in the logs. We do not know, but the evidence suggests they are not the mindless predators we would expect. Science Officer Crix, who had accompanied Velnara to the council chambers, stepped forward. If I may, I have completed linguistic analysis of the recovered database. We now have a name for this species. They call themselves humans. The word appeared on the display in both the original script and translated council standard. We have also pieced together more information about their home world, Crix continued. Earth sits at the inner edge of its star's habitable zone, receiving 30% more radiation than optimal for carbon-based life. The planet's axial tilt creates extreme seasonal variations. Its single moon creates tidal forces that cause regular flooding. The crust is highly active, with tectonic plates that cause frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Lethal radiation, crushing gravity, toxic atmosphere, unstable geology, Commander Jex listed. This is a nightmare world, and they evolved there naturally? There is more, Crix said. The magnetic field fluctuates, allowing additional radiation bursts. The atmosphere contains water vapor that creates massive storm systems, and the native biology appears to be highly competitive. We found references in their database to something called predation chains, where species hunt each other in organized hierarchies. A Thessian delegate spoke up, her voice trembling. They came from a world where everything was trying to kill them, including each other. How did they survive long enough to build that ship? We have a partial answer, Crick said. In the personal logs, we found repeated references to family groups, communities, and something they call nations. Despite their hostile world, humans formed large cooperative groups. The cargo manifest shows they were delivering supplies to help other humans suffering from natural disasters. Remarkable, Tarnwell said softly. They learned cooperation not in spite of their death world, but because of it. They survived by protecting each other. Or, Commander Jex countered, they learned to cooperate only within their own species. What happens when they encounter other species? Will they see us as partners or prey? Their forward-facing eyes mark them as predators. Their physiology shows adaptations for endurance hunting. They evolved to chase down and kill other creatures. Can we trust beings shaped by such violence? The cargo manifest included a personal item, Velnara said quietly. A physical book, written on processed plant fibers. Our translation is incomplete, but it appears to be philosophy, thoughts about morality and ethics. One passage reads, "We are not defined by where we came from, but by the choices we make with what we were given." The chamber fell silent. "Show me their planet's location," Commander Jex demanded. "We need to establish a quarantine zone immediately. If more humans exist, we must be prepared." Crix projected a star map. "Based on the derelict's trajectory and stellar references in their database, we estimate Earth is located here, approximately 300 light-years from Council space. Establish a quarantine perimeter," Mordak ordered. "No ships enter or leave that region without Council authorization. We need time to understand what we are dealing with." "Council Chair," a junior officer interrupted from the communication station. "We have a problem." "What now?" "Long-range sensors have detected a vessel approaching the quarantine zone from inside the restricted area. It is transmitting a signal. A greeting." Every being in the chamber turned to look at the display. "The vessel signature matches the derelict," the officer continued, his voice shaking. "The humans are coming." The neutral meeting station orbited a dead moon at the edge of Council space. It had been built specifically for this encounter, with enough security forces to fight off a small invasion fleet. Every weapon system in the sector pointed toward the approaching human vessel. Captain Velnara watched through the observation window as the ship called Olive Branch docked with the station. The name had been translated easily. An olive branch was apparently an Earth symbol of peace. She hoped the translation was accurate. "All security teams are in position," Commander Jex reported. His scales had turned a deep crimson, a saurian sign of readiness for battle. "If these humans show any hostile intent, we can neutralize them within seconds." "Let us hope that will not be necessary," Council Chair Mordak said. His telepathic presence filled the room with forced calm. "Remember, they requested this meeting. They came to us." The airlock door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Captain Velnara felt her crystalline structure tense. She had reviewed every scrap of information about humans, studied their biology, analyzed their ship design. But nothing prepared her for seeing them in person. They were smaller than she expected. The lead human stood perhaps 1.7 meters tall, less than Velnara's own height. The human's skin was a warm brown color, and black hair had been tied back in a practical style. Forward-facing eyes, as predicted, but they seemed more curious than predatory. The human wore a simple blue uniform with symbols Velnara did not recognize. "Greetings," the human said in perfect council standard, though with an unusual accent. "I am Captain Li Jiwoo of the Earth vessel Olive Branch. On behalf of humanity, I thank you for agreeing to meet with us." The voice was calm, measured, and somehow gentle. Velnara had expected something harsher from a Deathworld predator. "Captain Li," Mordak responded. Welcome to Council Space. We have many questions. I imagine you do, Lee said with a slight movement of her mouth that analysis suggested was a smile. We were very sorry to learn that one of our cargo ships had drifted into your territory. The Morning Star was lost 3 years ago during a navigation accident. We have been searching for the crew ever since. You knew we would find it eventually? Velnara asked. We hoped you would. It seemed like a better way to make first contact than simply appearing at your borders. Lee gestured to the 5 humans behind her. These are my crew members. Engineer Park Seo-jun, Medical Officer Kim Tae-hee, Linguist Choi Sung-min, and our security escorts. Security escorts. Commander Jex's scales darkened further. You brought soldiers to a peaceful meeting? I brought protection for my crew, Lee replied calmly. Just as you have surrounded this station with warships and armed personnel. We understand caution, Commander. Earth taught us to be careful, too. The human's directness surprised Velnara. No deflection, no offense taken. Just simple acknowledgement of reality. Please sit, Mordak invited. We have prepared an environment that should be comfortable for your biology. The humans moved to the prepared area. Velnara noticed how carefully they walked, how their movements seemed deliberately slow and controlled. In the station's standard gravity, which was lower than Earth's, they appeared to float slightly with each step. Once everyone was settled, the real conversation began. Captain Lee, Tarnwell said, his webbed fingers tapping together nervously. I am Chief Xenobiologist for the Galactic Council. I have studied evolution for my entire life, and I must tell you, your species should not exist. Class 3. Deathworlds do not produce intelligence. The evolutionary pressure is too extreme. Survival instinct overwhelms social development. Lee nodded slowly. I understand your confusion. We have studied our own evolution extensively. You are correct that Earth is very dangerous, but I think there is something your classification system missed. What is that? Deathworlds do not just teach violence, they teach necessity. On Earth, no human survives alone. Our ancestors learned that cooperation was not a luxury, it was the only way to stay alive. When a storm comes, you need your neighbor's help. When a predator attacks, you need your family to defend together. When someone is injured, you need your community to share food while they heal. Medical Officer Kim Tae-hee spoke up, her voice soft but clear. Our evolution was violent, yes, but that violence came from the planet, not from each other. We learned to turn our aggression outward, toward the threats Earth presented, and we learned to turn our protection inward, toward each other. A beautiful theory, Commander Jex said skeptically. But how do we know you will treat other species with this same cooperation? Your own kind are familiar. We are alien to you. Your predator instincts might see us differently. Engineer Park Seo-jun leaned forward. May I offer a demonstration? Not of our intentions, but of our biology. After a moment of consultation, the council agreed. Park stood and activated a holographic display. Human physiology appears aggressive on the surface, but look deeper. Yes, we have high endurance. We can run for hours when most species tire in minutes. Yes, we have redundant organ systems. We can survive injuries that would kill others. Yes, we heal quickly and tolerate pain well. But do you know why we evolved these traits? To hunt, Jex said confidently. To rescue, Park corrected. On Earth, disasters are constant. Someone is always in danger. Our endurance evolved so we could carry injured people to safety over long distances. Our redundant systems evolved so we could survive long enough to save others. Our pain tolerance evolved so we could function in crisis situations. We are not optimized for causing harm. We are optimized for preventing it. Velnara felt something shift in her understanding. You evolved to be rescuers. Every human grows up knowing they might need to save someone, Kim added. It could be a family member caught in a flood, a stranger trapped in an earthquake, or a friend lost in a storm. We internalized rescue as survival, because on Earth, your neighbor's survival is your survival. Commander Jex was not convinced. And what happens when you meet a species from another death world? One that did evolve to be aggressive? Will you still cooperate with them? Captain Lee's response was immediate and firm. Yes, we would help them. We would show them there is another way. If humans could learn cooperation on Earth, the most dangerous learning environment imaginable, then anyone can learn it. We would not abandon them to their worst instincts. The chamber fell silent. Velnara looked at the other council members. She could see doubt warring with hope in their expressions. Then the alarm sounded. A junior officer burst into the chamber. Emergency on mining station Keth 7. Tunnel collapse. 12 Veshkan miners trapped underground. Life support failing. They have less than 2 hours. Velnara turned to organize a response, but Captain Lee was already standing. How far is the station from here? Lee asked. 30 minutes at maximum speed, but our rescue teams need at least an hour to prepare proper equipment. We can be there in 20 minutes, Lee interrupted. And we do not need to prepare. We are always ready. Permission to assist? Commander Jex started to object, but Mordak held up a hand. Permission granted. Show us what Deathworlders can do. The Olive Branch arrived at mining station Keth 7 in 18 minutes. Science Officer Crix, who had insisted on accompanying the rescue coordination, watched as the human ship executed a docking maneuver that should have been impossible at such speed. The humans did not slow down until the last possible second. Docking complete, Captain Lee announced over the communication channel. Her voice remained calm, as if she had not just performed a maneuver that made Crix's antenna tremble with fear. Park, Kim. You are with me. Choi, coordinate with station personnel. Security team, prepare backup equipment. Crix met the humans at the airlock leading to the collapsed tunnel. The station manager, a Veshkan named Tixik, gestured with his multiple limbs toward a display screen showing the disaster site. The main support beam failed. 30 meters of tunnel collapsed. 12 of my workers are trapped in a pocket approximately 40 meters from this entrance. Atmosphere? Lee asked. Toxic gas leak from exposed mineral veins. Their suits have maybe 90 minutes of air remaining, but the gas is eating through the seals. Less if they panic. They will not panic, Kim said gently. We will get them out. Crick studied the tunnel scan. Captain Lee, I must advise against this. The gravity field is fluctuating due to damaged equipment. The remaining structure is unstable. Any movement could trigger a secondary collapse. For Veshkans, this would be a death sentence. For humans, given your higher gravity tolerance, it might be survivable, but our people are dying in there, Lee finished. We understand the risks. We accept them. She turned to her crew. Standard Deathworld rescue protocol. Park, you take point on structural assessment. Kim, you handle medical as soon as we reach them. I will coordinate extraction. Questions? No, Captain, they replied in unison. Crix watched in horror as the 3 humans sealed their suits and entered the tunnel without hesitation. No extensive equipment checks, no lengthy preparation. They simply walked into death as casually as Crix might walk into his laboratory. The helmet cameras transmitted everything back to the command center. The tunnel was worse than the scans suggested. Jagged metal beams jutted from collapsed rock. The gravity field flickered, causing loose debris to float randomly before suddenly crashing down. And the toxic gas created a yellow-green haze that obscured vision beyond a few meters. Structural integrity at 32%, Park reported, his voice steady. We have a path, but it will require manual stabilization as we advance. Proceed, Lee ordered. Crix watched Park crawl through spaces that looked impossibly tight. The human wedged his body between unstable rocks and used his own weight to hold collapses in place while Lee and Kim moved past. When a section of ceiling began to crumble, Park simply positioned himself beneath it and held the rubble on his shoulders. "Park, your suit is registering stress damage," Lee said. "I know, Captain, but this section will not hold without support. Keep moving. I will follow when you have secured the next anchor point." They moved like this for 30 agonizing minutes. Park would find a weakness, brace it with his body, and hold position until the others could place proper supports. Then he would move forward to the next critical point. Crix could not understand how the human remained so calm while essentially serving as a living support beam. "I have visual on the trapped miners," Lee reported. "They are alive, but their suits are severely compromised. Kim, I am sending you through." Medical Officer Kim squeezed through a gap that looked far too small for her body. Crix heard her grunt of effort, but she did not complain. She emerged on the other side and immediately began assessing the injured Veshkans. "Multiple fractures, oxygen deprivation, and gas exposure," Kim reported. "I can stabilize them, but we need to extract them quickly. Their biology is not handling this environment well." "Understood," Lee said. "Beginning extraction sequence." Then everything went wrong. A secondary support beam failed, triggered by the fluctuating gravity. The entire section of tunnel began to collapse. Crix watched the camera feeds in terror as tons of rock and metal crashed down. Engineer Park, who had been moving to reinforce the exit route, disappeared under the avalanche. "Park!" Lee shouted. "I am okay," came Park's strained voice. "Buried, but my suit held. Continue extraction. Get the miners out first." "Your oxygen levels are dropping," Kim said urgently. "I know. I can hold my breath longer than the Veshkans can wait. Get them out, Captain. That is an order from your engineer." Crix could not believe what he was hearing. The human was trapped, possibly dying, and he was ordering his captain to leave him behind. But Lee did not argue. "Understood. Kim, begin moving the miners. I will work on clearing Park's position simultaneously." For the next 40 minutes, Crix watched something that changed his entire understanding of humans. Captain Lee worked with mechanical efficiency, helping Kim move each injured Veshkan through the treacherous tunnel while simultaneously clearing rubble from Park's location. She did not pause. She did not slow down. She simply worked. Kim treated each Veshkan with extraordinary care, speaking softly to them in their own language, reassuring them that everything would be fine. When one miner panicked about leaving Park behind, Kim held his claw gently and said, "We do not leave anyone behind. Not you, not him, not anyone. This is what humans do." The last Veshkan miner cleared the tunnel with 5 minutes of oxygen remaining in his suit. The moment he was safe, Lee doubled her efforts on Park's position. Commander Zex, who had been monitoring from the council ship, ordered additional rescue teams to assist, but Lee waved them off. "Too many people will destabilize the structure further. I have him." She did. 10 minutes later, Engineer Park emerged from the rubble, his suit torn in 3 places, his oxygen gauge reading 0. He had been holding his breath for almost 6 minutes, something medical databases said was impossible for humans. Apparently, the databases were wrong. "Status?" Lee asked, as if Park had just returned from a routine inspection. "Minor bruising, Captain. Nothing serious. How are the miners?" "All alive, thanks to you." Medical Officer Kim was already treating the Veshkans in the station's medical bay when Crix found her. Tixik, one of the rescued miners, was conscious and staring at Kim with his compound eyes wide. "How do your people do this?" Tixik asked. "How do you walk into death so calmly?" Kim smiled softly while applying a regeneration patch to his fractured limb. "We do not think of it as death. We think of it as another day on Earth. Our planet tries to kill us constantly. Earthquakes, storms, floods, fires. We grew up knowing that any day we might need to save someone, or someone might need to save us. It stopped being bravery a long time ago. It is just life." "You are insane," Tixik said, but his voice carried admiration. Maybe, Kim agreed, but we are alive, and so are you. Crix returned to the command center where the council delegation had gathered to review footage of the rescue. The chamber was silent as they watched Park hold up a collapsing ceiling, as they watched Lee work with tireless determination, as they watched Kim treat injured aliens with the same care she would show her own species. Finally, Chief Xenobiologist Tarn Wells spoke. I was wrong. Completely wrong. I thought Deathworld evolution would create monsters, but Earth created something else entirely. A species so familiar with death that they have lost their fear of it. A species so accustomed to disaster that rescue has become their instinct. Commander Jex's scales had faded to a pale green, a color Crix had never seen on a Saurian before. They did not hesitate. Not for a second. Those miners were not even their own species, and the humans treated them like family. Because that is what Earth taught them, Velnara said softly. On a death world, everyone is family, because everyone might need to save everyone else. The council delegation stood as the human crew returned to the meeting station. Captain Lee looked tired, and Engineer Park moved with a slight limp, but they smiled when they saw the council waiting for them. I believe, Council Chair Mordak said, we have more to discuss. 3 days after the mining rescue, the Galactic Council reconvened. The chamber buzzed with conversation as representatives debated humanity's place in galactic society. Captain Velnara noticed that the tone had shifted. Fear remained, but it now competed with something else. Hope. Commander Jex stood to address the council. His scales had returned to their normal green color, but his voice carried unusual uncertainty. I have reviewed the rescue footage 37 times. I have consulted with military analysts from 12 species, and I must revise my earlier assessment. He paused, as if the next words were difficult. Humanity's capacity for violence is undeniable. Their biology gives them advantages in combat that no council species can match. But I was wrong to assume this made them dangerous to us. Their violence is not directed at other people. It is directed at circumstances, at disasters, at death itself. Yet the threat remains, said a Thessian delegate. What happens when humans decide cooperation no longer serves them? What happens when they face a situation where violence against other species becomes advantageous? Captain Lee Jiwoo, sitting in the designated human section, asked permission to speak. Mordak granted it. Delegate, you raise a valid concern, Lee said. So let me be completely honest with you. Humans are capable of terrible things. Our history is filled with wars, genocides, and cruelty. We have hurt each other in ways that shame us. The chamber stirred uncomfortably. This was not the reassurance they expected. But here is what makes humanity different from the monsters you fear. Lee continued. We remember. We studied our worst moments. We teach our children about our failures, and every generation makes a choice to be better. Not because our instincts changed. Our instincts are the same violent tools Earth gave us. But because we decided that being human means choosing cooperation over instinct, choosing protection over domination, choosing to build instead of destroy. She stood, her voice growing stronger. Yes, we could use our abilities for conquest. We could probably win. But victory without purpose is just another form of dying. Earth taught us that survival means community. And once you internalize that lesson, you cannot ignore it just because you left your homeworld. We carry Earth's truth with us wherever we go. We are stronger together. Engineer Park Seo-jun added quietly, every human knows what we are capable of. That is precisely why we choose restraint. The strong who have never faced real danger might not understand their own capacity for harm. We do, and that knowledge keeps us honest. Before the debate could continue, emergency alerts flooded into the chamber. A junior officer ran to Mordak's platform, his movements panicked. Council Chair, we have a crisis situation. The Quellan homeworld reports catastrophic flooding, unusual tidal forces from their binary moon alignment, thousands trapped in coastal cities, atmospheric pockets failing. They are requesting emergency assistance. Chief xenobiologist Tarnwell, himself a Quellan, stood abruptly. How bad? Worst natural disaster in recorded Quellan history. Your people need help now. The council erupted into organized chaos. Rescue coordination began immediately. But Velnara could see the problem. The council's rescue capabilities were designed for predictable emergencies, not planetary-scale disasters. It would take days to mobilize enough resources. "We do not have days," Tarnwell said desperately. "My people will die." A new voice cut through the chaos. Captain Lee stood at the communication panel, speaking rapidly into her transmitter. "Confirmed. All available vessels. Converge on Quellan homeworld. Yes, I know we are not authorized. Do it anyway. Lives matter more than politics." She turned to face the stunned council. "The human fleet can be at the Quellan homeworld in 6 hours. 37 ships, over 3,000 volunteers. We are not asking for permission to join the council. We are asking permission to help people who are drowning. Please." Mordak looked at Commander Jex, then at Tarnwell. "Do it. Authorize human intervention." The next 72 hours became legendary in galactic history. Humans worked alongside council rescue teams in conditions that pushed everyone to their limits. They navigated toxic floodwaters filled with debris and aggressive aquatic life. They dove into collapsing structures to pull out trapped Quellans. They established field hospitals and treated victims with the same care Medical Officer Kim had shown the Veshkan miners. Captain Velnara volunteered to coordinate rescue efforts from the surface. She watched in awe as humans simply kept working. When they exhausted themselves, they rested for a few hours and returned. When one team completed a rescue, they immediately moved to the next crisis. There was no glory-seeking, no demands for recognition, just constant, tireless effort. On the second day, a human volunteer named Yoon Ji-ho was killed when a building collapsed while she was evacuating Quellan children. The entire human contingent paused for exactly 60 seconds of silence. Then they continued working, because as one human told Velnara, Ji-ho died making sure those kids lived. The only way to honor that is to save more people. When the crisis finally ended, over 40,000 Quellans had been rescued. The death toll, while tragic, was a fraction of what it would have been without intervention. Tarnwell stood in the ruins of his people's capital city and wept openly. "You saved us," he said to Captain Lee. "You did not even wait for permission. You just came." "Of course we came," Lee replied simply. "You needed help. Nothing else mattered." The Galactic Council vote on what became known as the Deathworld Covenant took place 1 week later. Tarnwell presented the motion personally. "I have studied evolution my entire life," he began. "I thought I understood how species developed. But I was wrong about one fundamental truth. I believed Deathworlds only created violence. I did not realize they also created something precious. Perspective." He gestured toward the human delegation. These beings grew up on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They watched people they loved die to earthquakes, storms, disease, and disaster. They internalized loss in a way we cannot imagine, and instead of making them cruel, it made them kind. Instead of making them selfish, it made them generous. Because they know in their bones that life is fragile and precious. The vote was not unanimous. Some delegates still harbored concerns, but 43 of 47 species approved the covenant. Humanity was granted partnership status with the Galactic Council and authorized to establish the Rescue Corps, stations throughout Council space staffed by human volunteers and any species willing to train in extreme disaster response. Captain Velnara presented Captain Lee with the Council sigil during the ceremony. The small crystal device would allow humans to access Council resources and move freely through galactic space. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we welcome humanity as partners, Velnara said formally. Then she added in a softer tone, "Thank you for showing us what courage truly means." Lee accepted the sigil, then surprised everyone by making an addition to the covenant. Humanity agrees to establish rescue corps stations and to train any species interested in disaster response. We will share everything Earth taught us, the hard lessons, the painful truths, and the survival skills. Not so others have to suffer as we did, but so they can help others the way we learned to help each other. 6 months later, the first joint human-alien rescue station opened near the galactic core. The rescued Veshkan miners had petitioned for naming rights, and they chose Hope from Hardship. Captain Lee stood with her crew watching the first training cohort begin their instruction. 12 species had sent representatives. Some would not complete the training. It was designed by humans, after all, and humans had Earth-level standards. But those who succeeded would become part of something new. A galactic rescue force built on Deathworld principles. Engineer Park joked that teaching aliens to survive human-style training would be harder than the original rescue missions. Medical Officer Kim reminded him that was the point. If they could handle human training, they could handle real disasters. Science Officer Crix, now officially assigned as liaison to the rescue corps, stood beside Velnara and watched the mixed crews working together. "We spent centuries afraid of Deathworlds. We thought they only produced monsters." "And instead?" Velnara asked. "They produced our greatest protectors. Humans did not conquer their fear of Earth. They learned to face fear itself. And now they are teaching us to do the same." Captain Lee received a transmission from Earth that evening. Her daughter had sent a new drawing. It showed humans and various alien species standing together beneath unfamiliar stars. The caption, written in a child's careful handwriting, read, "Dad says you are making friends. Can they come visit?" Lee looked at the image for a long moment, then smiled. She typed her response. "Yes, sweetheart, they can come visit. And I think they are going to love Earth." She paused, then added, "Well, they will love Earth after they stop screaming about the gravity."